The battle I'm about to describe was named after a small village called Vien Thiên 3 in the central highlands of Vietnam. I know we have an accurate record of this battle for two reasons. One, 2 days after the fight, Army historians came out and interviewed all of the key participants in the battle. And secondly, we had a NVA prisoner who gave us his perspective of the battle from the enemy side. Corporal Quang was a prisoner captured by the South Vietnamese 41st Army Regiment the day before. And the most important intelligence that he gave us was the location of his battalion of about 300 men. He said that they were just west of a ridgeline of the small village of Dien Bien. Battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Rickard, ordered his Bravo company to conduct an air assault the following morning with a search and destroy mission to find and eliminate the 7th NVA Battalion. And, we were going to land on the landing zone with 26 helicopters and have the entire company dropped off. Most importantly, since we anticipated a fight, the landing zone was prepped with our howitzers, 105 millimeter howitzers, and then aerial rocket artillery. I looked out and I could see the artillery shells blanketing the landing zone and areas adjacent to the landing zone, and girded myself to step off this helicopter and be in instant combat. As we neared the landing zone, our door gunners began to fire at all the bushes or potential hiding places for the NVA. So there's a great deal of noise, and particularly as you're just about ready to step off the helicopter, very loud noise and confusion and dust. And then immediately after the 6 men jumped off the helicopter, it was quiet except for the sound of burning bushes. And shortly thereafter, the radios began to crackle, and we set upon our journey to the west ridgeline to locate the 7th NVA Battalion. OH-13 observation helicopter spotted an armed man going into one of the hooches in Vien Thiên. Our company commander, Captain Van Dyson, ordered one squad from the weapons platoon to go apprehend that individual. Well, what we didn't know at the time was that the NVA battalion had moved off the west ridgeline and into the village of Vien Thiên. And in the village, they had steel rebar reinforced with concrete defensive positions. So they were set up to anticipate a big battle with American forces. The 6-man weapons platoon squad approached the village over a dry rice paddy. As they got very close, probably 30 yards or so away, the enemy opened up on this doomed squad. There were 2 KIAs immediately, and the rest of the weapons platoon squad was wounded. The enemy didn't kill the rest of them because they knew American bombers would not be bombing their positions because of the proximity of the weapons squad. Company Commander Edgar Van Dyson ordered my platoon, the 2nd platoon, and the 3rd platoon to assist in retrieving the wounded and dead from the weapons squad. The 3rd platoon was able to get into the southeast corner of the village, and we provided supporting fire. We could see the enemy machine guns and automatic weapons firing at basically the 3rd platoon. There were many casualties and some confusion as to what exactly was happening, because this is the first time we realized that there was a large enemy force where we anticipated just one enemy soldier. The current situation was there were probably 90 American soldiers in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th platoons, and the 1st platoon was up in the low foothills, and they had another 27 men. There were 3 or 4 killed from the 3rd platoon, along with 8 or 9 wounded. The next step in the battle was Colonel Carlos, which was our brigade commander, ordered all available armored forces to join the fight with us. The number of vehicles that actually came included a M48 tank, like the one that's behind me, and also 2 Dusters, which were armed with twin 40mm cannons. And these 3 vehicles fired up the enemy positions, as well as picking up the wounded and the dead from the 3rd and the weapons squad. It was becoming obvious that there was a major enemy force in the village. Lieutenant Carlos wanted to prevent the enemy in the village from escaping, so he ordered 2 additional 1st Cavalry companies into blocking positions around the village. They told us that, they had called in for airstrikes, and you could see the planes circling and waiting their turn to come in and place their ordnance. After the last airstrike was done, Captain Van Dyson said we were going to go into village. I was to lead with my 2nd platoon and the 3rd platoon. The village was really, I would say, 70% destroyed. Most of the hooches that we looked at were beat up very badly because of all the ordnance that had been placed on it. And we thought that it would be a cakewalk in terms of most of the NVA would be dead. But leading our platoon was Sergeant Cook, my 1st squad leader, and Sergeant Johnston, who was a machine gunner. And Sergeant Cook looked over to his left, and he saw an enemy soldier get out of a bunker and shoot at him with his rifle, his AK-47. And Sergeant Cook shot back at him, but his rifle jammed, so he fell behind a tree. Johnson saw what was happening and had a machine gun, and he shot 2 or 3 bursts into the enemy, who fell dead. I remember Johnson saying it was his first time killing a man. It was very sobering. After Johnson shot and killed the enemy soldier, there was like a 10-round burst of bullets, and we all fell down, and I landed next to a well. I told my men to throw grenades into any suspected enemy bunkers or spider holes, and I was laying next to a well. I remember pitching a grenade down the well. Don't ask me why. I thought someone might be hiding there, but I remember a huge water geyser on a very hot summer day erupting and soaking me. And after that, we followed the tank and the 2 Dusters and secured the bottom 1/3 of the village without taking any additional casualties. One of our helicopter gunships, piloted by Lieutenant Campbell, spotted a large enemy force leaving the village to the west. Lieutenant Campbell said, "Hell, we've shot 2, we shot 3. I've shot 8. Hell, there's 20 or 30 in here. We're killing them all." Just after Campbell reported seeing all those NVA soldiers, his gunship was shot down. So the 1st platoon came down off of the foothills. There were 27 men who approached the helicopter, and just as they got to the helicopter, they reported that the whole four-man crew were all dead. And that's when the NVAs sprang their ambush. There was a tremendous burst of fire. Initially, Frank Constantino, Lieutenant Cox's RTO, was shot dead. Lieutenant Cox was shot and went to aid his RTO and was shot again. McWethy, who was their platoon medic, attended to Lieutenant Cox's wound, and then another soldier was injured, and as he was crawling over to him, McWethy received a second gunshot wound in his leg, so he dragged himself over and gave aid to one of the other downed troopers. Just as fire was intensifying, a third trooper had been shot. And McWethy again went to his aid, even though he was shot a third time. And finally, he noticed that one of the troopers was in the middle of their perimeter and was badly wounded. And he went to his aid, and while giving artificial respiration, he was killed by a fourth and final gunshot wound to his head. At the same time, Spec 4 Carmen Harvey had two wounded soldiers next to him, and one of the enemy bullets ignited his hand grenade. He tried to get it off, but he couldn't get it off in time, and so he just jumped to his feet and ran straight towards the enemy machine gun. Got almost to the machine gun. It exploded and killing Harvey instantly. For his heroism that day, McWethy was awarded the Medal of Honor. Carmen Harvey, he also was awarded the Medal of Honor for his courage on that day. At this point in time, the company was divided basically into two points of combat. One was the village, which I was a party to, and had most of the troops from the company there. And the second was next to the downed gunship, when they had 27 men of the 1st Platoon. And of the men that were there, 12 were wounded and 5 were dead. It was about 1845 hours when I was told to discontinue our attack in the village and proceed to the down chopper in the 1st Platoon. Our mission in the village changed from a search and destroy to a rescue mission for the 1st Platoon. Our column, which was headed by the M48 tank and 2 Dusters, my 2nd Platoon and the 3rd Platoon, headed for the 1st Platoon. We got about halfway there when the M48 tank, the transmission broke down. So I remember thinking, what should we do? And I said, well, we'll just leave the tank crew. I never did hear exactly what happened to them, but we took my 100 men and went on to the first position of the 1st Platoon. As we got about 75 meters short of the 1st Platoon, one of the Dusters fell off a deep embankment, breaking the legs of the driver, and basically the guns were pointed right to the ground. We quickly went from an armored unit to a barely armored unit. I remember talking to Colonel Rickard, the 1st Battalion commander, and I remember Colonel Rickard on the radio said to me, you sound excited. And it kind of brought everything back into focus. I took a deep breath and focused in on the challenges which we were experiencing. My 2nd and 3rd Platoon and the 1 Duster out of the 3 armored vehicles were about 75 meters south of the burning chopper. Sergeant Cook, my 1st squad leader, one of the many heroes of that day, came and said, I'll go get him. I'll take my squad and I'll bring the dead and the wounded back. He said, we got to get the wounded back. 2 of the 12 wounded were going to die unless they could receive medical attention the next couple of hours. So we called for another medevac, dust-off, and as a dust-off chopper neared the 1st Platoon, Sergeant Cook popped a white flare so that they could see where they were. But then the enemy opened up and wounded another door gunner and flew back to LZ uplift. So Sergeant Cook was going to have to bring those people back to my position. And I told him just to leave the dead, we'll retrieve them in the morning and return the wounded to my perimeter. So thanks to Sergeant Cook, all of our wounded and active soldiers were in my perimeter. Our battalion commander, Colonel Rickard, got coordinated with the South Vietnamese Army and sent in 4 113 APCs, and they pulled into our perimeter. We loaded up the wounded, and then they took the wounded back to the landing zone south of the village where the weapons platoon was located. After the wounded were taken to safety, called in artillery around our perimeter. And then also they had a spooky gunship. And I remember you hear a loud whoo, and then thousands of rounds are being shot at, escape round. The next morning, we policed the area with our company and the A and Bravo company of the blocking units, and counted about 30 NVA dead right by the right where that helicopter was shot down. And then in the village, there was another 60 dead in bunkers, and an unknown number of people were buried beneath the rubble in the village. First Cav had these flying, they call them sky cranes, and they brought in a bulldozer, which basically leveled the village, and I imagine that village is not even there today. About a week and a half after the battle had ended, we were withdrawn to our base camp in Ankei, and our company held a memorial service, so we honored them in our own impromptu way at the base camp of Ankei. The war was very controversial, but we did the job we were sent to do. All Vietnam veterans should be very proud of the service that they did during the Vietnam War.